thank goodness for Donald Trump being in office now. And I say that as a lifelong Democrat, so it's kind of odd for those words to come out. But right out of the gate, he signed a myriad of executive orders that there's one that defines sex, female and male, which I never thought that we would need to have that definition in law because it's just known what a female and male is. He signed an executive order to get males out of females' sports. And then he signed an executive order to get these gender clinics to stop the barbaric practice of cutting off children's body parts and pumping them with experimental drugs, pulling federal funding from them. And so he has done more to protect families, women, and children within the first 30 days of an administration that's ever. So it's pretty historic. And your listeners need to understand that the reason why Donald Trump won all of the swing states was because of the transgender issue. You know, this appeals to Democrats, independents, and Republicans alike. The vast majority of Americans are against this transgender movement as a whole.
California is going to fight this, right? Is that how it's going to go? Certain states are not following this executive order, and they're trying to fight it, right?
That's correct. So California is digging its heels in and saying that it's not going to follow these executive orders. Some of the hospitals started to follow the executive order after 3 days, and then the Attorney General, Rob Bonta, wrote a press release saying that all these hospitals need to continue to do these so-called sex changes on children, and so they have resumed. We have Gavin Newsom now waffling on this issue because he understands what's at stake for the public schools if they do not follow Trump's executive orders as far as getting males out of female sports and spaces. So he's on the fence on this, as we saw with his interview with Charlie Kirk. He said males being in female sports is unfair. So he's kind of playing both sides, waiting to see what happens. But schools right now, they don't know what to do. I have lots of conversations with school board members because we have law in California that says you must follow state and federal law for funding. State law in California places gender identity above sex. So it says a student, if they identify as a certain gender, then they can participate in a sport as that, in that sex category. Or a male can go into the girls' bathroom, shower room, etc., as long as he says that he identifies as a female. So that's our state law. That's codified.
That's California law.
That is California law. Then we have federal law, which incidentally trumps.
The executive order changed it, right? It's kind of...
Well, the executive...
Or was it there before?
Two things. So the executive order made it very clear that the federal government will withhold dollars from any, educational institution that is violating Title IX. There was a court case filed in Kentucky recently, and the ruling came out in January of this year that said Biden's Title IX changes are vacated. So they are unconstitutional, and we need to go back to Title IX as it was written in 2020, which is based on sex. Biden changed Title IX to say gender identity is the same as sex, which it's not. So the court said no. So a lower court said no. And then Trump came in with his executive order and said, any school that is allowing males to participate as females will not get federal dollars. And we're seeing this play out now. Trump isn't kidding around with this. This has never happened in U.S. history. There's never been federal dollars withheld from schools for violating Title IX. But Trump's doing it. Yesterday, the University of Pennsylvania had $175 million now frozen from the federal government because Leah Thomas was participating as a female in swimming. On Monday, 5 days ago, the federal government just ruled, the HHS, the Department of Ed, just told Maine, you are in violation of Title IX. You have 10 days to remedy it. And if they don't remedy it, Maine is going to lose their federal dollars. And these federal dollars mean something, especially here in California.
Tell us about Title IX.
Title IX was enacted in 1972. It is 37 words long. That's it. And it says that any educational institution that is getting federal dollars that discriminates based on sex will not get that funding. So it's basically a contract. So if the school wants federal dollars, it cannot discriminate on sex so that women could get the same education as males. So women could have the same rights to sports as males. And that was by design. It was based on sex. Biden then came in and actually really, President Obama started it, came in and said, gender identity is the same as sex. And so you can't discriminate based on gender identity. Sex and gender identity, they cannot coexist. One has to be higher than the other. There has to be a hierarchy. And of course, sex is immutable. No human has ever changed sex. Gender identity is an internal belief that contradicts the exterior body. And so Biden was trying to get gender identity to be higher than sex. And the courts have thus far said no. And that will continue. This is ultimately going to go to the Supreme Court because it's just unfair. And it goes against the purpose of Title IX. Title IX was not championed by a bunch of trans-identified people. It was championed by females so that females had equal opportunities to males.